Hello, everyone. This is the first of hopefully many podcasts. I'm here with a very special guest. His name is Khalid. I met this brother in the masjid, and yeah. So, how's everything going, Khalid?
It's going well. Thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa Islam. Yeah. So, we met during Ramadan, actually.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see you. You were locked in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were having iftar at the same time, and I was like,
Yeah.
I want to talk to this guy. So, what
Yeah.
was your first impression when you saw me?
To be honest, I was surprised because, like you said, I was locked in. Ramadan is that time
Yeah.
where you want to like. At the time, it was one of the first times that, like, because I was out of school and stuff, so I wanted to focus on myself. I wanted to like make sure I took advantage of everything because it was the first Ramadan in a long time that I had the ability to do that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in our youth, sometimes we waste our time
That's true.
with
Yeah.
other things. And this year, I felt like I wanted to take advantage of it. So I looked locked in. And when you approached me, your big smile on your face, and it was a pleasure. SubhanAllah, it was a blessing to meet you. And it was the first thing I was like, why? Like, to be very honest, like I'm gonna be very honest here. I was like, why is this guy talking to me? Like, out of everybody in this masjid,
Yeah.
go talk to anybody else, But alhamdulillah that you did approach me because I think we've built a bond or a friendship that we have that I don't think is like you can replicate
Yeah.
very easily, right?
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. This guy is one of the most humble people I've ever met.
No,
And
not at all.
yeah, like I need to get beer tips from him too, because
Yeah.
mashallah, look at that. Yeah. So Khalid, what do you do for work?
So for work, I finished school in tech, so I have a tech background.
Yeah.
So I work in tech.
In tech.
Yeah.
What do you work as?
I work right now as a security analyst, so I do a lot of it's like I do like cloud cybersecurity.
Yeah.
So that's what I do now, but it's not what I studied, but I never found it like a good thing to stick to what you've done. I always like to explore other things. So
Oh.
going away from my education kind of, it might be a detriment, but I have to take that risk, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So on a day-to-day basis, what exactly do your operations look like?
It's just, when you open up
You can be technical. It's okay.
not really, it's a little confidential.
Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Yeah. So, basically we're day to day, you log in, you make sure that the network's running fine.
Yeah.
People aren't accessing things they shouldn't. People
Yeah.
are, you got to make sure certain websites are blocked, all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to make sure that no files are being downloaded that could have sensitive information, that kind of stuff.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you think the future of cybersecurity is going to look like?
It's booming, man.
Yeah.
Everywhere you look around, I think personally, I believe that the tech industry is a little oversaturated because we always hear about layoffs from Google, from
Yeah.
Facebook, from those really big companies. There's always layoffs, and especially in the software engineering side of things. And I feel like there was this huge push for. Don't get me wrong. I think STEM is a very good field, right? So science, technology, engineering, and mathematics,
Yeah.
amazing field. However, I believe that now is the time to find lots of startups, or people need to do startups because it's very difficult to get a job, right?
That's true.
Or that's just my personal anecdote. If you're finding a job very quickly, that's a blessing for you, and I hope
Contact us, help us out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I feel like it's an oversaturated field, but I think it's one of those fields that it'll bring that next Elon Musk,
Yeah.
right? It'll be that there will be someone who will make a startup and go with it, and it'll change the world, right? So
Yeah.
it's a field that we need, but it's also one of those fields where it's difficult to navigate sometimes.
Oh, I mean, right now the biggest trend in the world is AI.
Correct.
How do you think AI is going to impact cybersecurity in the coming years?
Massive. Or actually, to answer the first question you asked about cybersecurity is because everything is moving to cloud.
Yeah.
No one's storing anything locally anymore, right? A lot of the stuff that you do when you think of running programs online, or if you're using a web-based editor or something, or
Yeah.
you're using anything web-based, a lot of the time it's hosted with AWS,
Yeah.
which is the Amazon Cloud Services, or you're using Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud services, or you're using Google Cloud Platform, right? And it is like the cybersecurity, or just cloud in general, opens the door to so many things, so many technologies that we can take advantage of. And I think AI is one of them. And it'll only get better because with AI, you'll be able to track the patterns of the users, right?
Yeah.
So if I notice this user is doing XYZ for months on end, then all of a sudden it starts doing ABC.
Yeah.
I know something's wrong, or I need to look
Oh.
into that or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think AI could really, it could really replace my job, really, right?
Oh no.
So, I mean, obviously this is like a
Yeah.
future thing, and who knows, there's always going to be a need for something somewhere or someone somewhere, but AI could really change the world in a sense. Like, I'm no tech expert specifically, right? I like to look at myself as a layman in my industry.
Yeah.
And that's but that's the thing. AI, we see it right now. It's changing the industry, especially in content creation. So many people are using AI to generate images, videos now, right?
Yeah.
So and that's the thing, is that's the stuff that everyone sees. But what about the AI that people don't see? What about the
That's
AI
true.
that is functioning on the back end of all of these systems that people use nowadays, right? Like when you think of ChatGPT, I'm sure there's AI systems that are being used in companies internally that
Yeah.
can really shape the future into something that we can't tell right now, and we'll only see it in the future, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's more than just taking help from assignments, you know. AI
Yeah,
is huge.
exactly.
Yeah, and what about quantum computing? Like, how do you think
Oh,
a combination between both of these is going to impact?
I'm super ignorant in quantum computing, man.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it. I think it's like this beast on its own, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
with all the power that it requires and the amount of engineering and thought that goes into those things, I can't comprehend it myself.
Yeah.
I have to do research on it, you know what I mean? Like I actually can't answer that question.
No, I mean, I can understand. There's just too much going on right now.
Yeah.
And tech evolves at such a rapid pace.
Exactly.
It's very hard to stay on track.
Exactly.
But how do you stay on track? Is there anything you do which most people don't to stay on track?
I think I do the same thing that everybody else does. You know, lots of YouTube videos,
Yeah.
because nowadays you can learn anything on YouTube. So if you're trying to learn a programming language, you can go learn on YouTube, right? If you want to learn how to do it, the smallest thing. So I like to stay updated on YouTube to see any new technologies that people might be using, any new frameworks, right? Or
Yeah.
what is out there, right? There's a lot of, or even there's Microsoft has like a blog,
Yeah.
right? It's called Microsoft Learn, I think. So you
Okay.
can actually go on and there's a bunch of courses there that you can take and you can learn for free, no problem. You have to pay for certain things, but essentially there's so many online platforms that you can use for learning that I try to use as much as I can, right? Because
Yeah.
essentially with the internet, everything's available to us. It's just a matter of finding the right thing and taking advantage of it.
That's true. And do you think AI is going to be something to completely replace cybersecurity people, or is it going to be more of something that will assist them?
I think it's a little bit of both, because at the end of the day, you'll need an engineer to develop the AI.
That's true. Yeah.
Or to basically look at it. It's like, I think I like to think about it as like a manufacturing line,
Yeah.
where yes, you have people who work at like, I don't know, let's just say a manufacturing company, but at the end of the day, they still need one person at least, or two or three, who are going to sit there and watch the robots do their work.
Yeah.
And if something goes wrong, you have to press the stop button. And I
Yeah.
think the same thing applies to AI, where you're going to have someone who will look over the logs and make sure everything's functioning correctly. Because with technology, you can never be too safe with it, right? We always need a redundancy.
Yeah.
And yes, the humans aren't as precise as a computer could be, but there still needs to be some involvement, in my opinion.
Oh, wow. So the movies weren't lying to us. AI can take over everything.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say everything, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, shifting gears a bit. What are your goals for the future?
I mean, goals for the future. I mean, it's something it's hard to answer, to be quite honest, because life changes so quickly,
Yeah,
and you never know what's going to be thrown your way.
that's true.
And something that I've learned recently on my own journey is that challenging myself is something that I need to look at as a thing to progress. It's not necessarily I look at this question in a very philosophical way. I don't want to answer it and say, oh, I want to work at this company in 10 years and be here and have this and own a house and have a car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more of how can I develop as myself personally, right? So my future, I like to live myself day by day. Like I like to live day by day, but I also like to like kind of plan, but I never have a concrete thing because I never know what's going to be thrown my way.
Yeah.
Right? Especially like you don't know if a family member will pass away, how that
That's
will
true.
affect your life,
Yeah.
or if someone is born into your family, how that will affect your life, or if you get married, or if you do all these kind of things. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think it's about having the ability to adapt in your life. That's what I think. I mean, I want to do things and I want to learn, because I think learning, I might be rambling here, by the way, so I apologize for that.
No, you're not.
But I believe that where I see myself is I want to be that person that continues to challenge themselves. I want to be that person in the future that learns new things, right? I want to be someone who's better at networking, because I don't go to networking events. It's very, like I told you in the beginning, is when you spoke to me, it's like I didn't want to speak to you, because I was like, out of everybody here, you chose to speak to me. But it was like, it was a blessing at the end of the day. But it was one of those things where I need to put myself out there. I need to be able to adapt and grow as a person.
Yeah.
So in the future, I can do things with more people, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answered the question, but
No, that did. Yeah, that definitely did. Okay. Yeah, so, shifting gears again, like since you grew up in the West, like what are the major challenges you faced?
I definitely would say fitting in, especially when I look at some of my peers growing up, who also have the similar background. We're Muslim, Arab or North African background.
Yeah.
Essentially, it was very strange because at home we're being taught how to live in the way of a Muslim and all that, but then in school we're being taught something else, or we look at the people who are Canadian or who are American and we look at their society and it's like, okay, well, they're eating pork, but you go home and you say, Mom, they're eating pork, what the heck, I thought pork was haram.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you kind of get those questions, or you kind of question things sometimes in a very like negative way. And I believe that it was a blessing to be raised in the West because of all the challenges, unfortunately, that our societies face back home. And may Allah like bless them and take away their burdens. But I mean, yeah. it was challenging in a way because I wanted to adapt this identity of a Muslim, but I also wanted to fit in. Yeah. And the thing is, you can't have those two values at the same time. It's very difficult to have the value of a Muslim, but try to take the value of a Westerner. Yeah. Right. I think one of those things would be like, touching people. Touching people isn't something that's common in Arab culture or Muslim culture, really, especially of the opposite gender. Yeah. So growing up, right, like I still remember going to school in primary school where we would have to do dances. So we would be dancing, and obviously you're not going to be dancing with a male. We would do like it's not the tango, but we would do like dancing with females. You know what I mean? Yeah. And this was what was encouraged. So, or even just singing Christmas carols and Christmas songs. I still have those in my memory today, unfortunately. But that's the way. I'm not saying that it's bad to grow up here. It was a blessing. However, there's certain aspects of the society that made it a little challenging for myself when I got older, especially when I was in middle school, high school, when you're getting into that mind where you have the ability to think, you're cognizant of what you're thinking. Yeah. So it was very difficult because I was thinking to myself, I was like, I want to be involved with these people, with the white people, or I'll just say Western people for now. But I wanted to be involved with them and blend in with them. But I look visibly different. I am visibly different, and mentally I'm different. Yeah. Religiously I'm different. But that's where I had that clash. But I think I got over that at some point, alhamdulillah, and I was able to think, okay, no, I stand as a Muslim. I'm not an Arab. I am Arab background. Yeah. But I'm a Muslim first. Yeah, that's I know I used to play sports, so a lot of the times they would say, oh, like, you're a student athlete. You're a student before you're an athlete. Yeah. And I believe that we have to look at ourselves nowadays in today's society that we are Muslim first. That's true. I'm not Canadian. I'm not Lebanese. I'm not whatever. I am Muslim, and then I am something else, because my Muslim identity is who I am. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's the thing, is because we met in the masjid, we were able to have that link. That's true. Yeah. You're from a Pakistani background who grew up in Dubai. Yeah. I'm Lebanese background living in Canada. Yeah. However, we bonded over the fact that we are Muslim. That's true. Yeah. This will never happen ever. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you won't see it with Western culture. If you see someone who's Canadian versus American, they'll say, "Oh, I'm Canadian, I'm American," and it stops there. You know what I mean? Oh. Okay. But with us, it's like, yes, you can be from here, you can be from there, you can be from anywhere around the world, but we share that connection of being Muslim. Yeah. Right. And that's for everybody. I'm not saying that you have to be from an Arab speaking country, because Pakistan isn't an Arab speaking country. Yeah, it's not. But we bond over the fact that we are Muslim and we are brothers. And I think that's what's more important. Oh, yeah. But what would you say to like people who are struggling to find a middle ground? Are you able to find a middle ground till now though? I believe I wouldn't say it's a middle ground, but I would say it's being moderate. Okay. Because there's nothing wrong with networking, right? Yeah. However, you need to know the limits of what you can do, right? And I think it's important, especially to learn. You always have to be learning, whether it's secular or Islamic education, right? So we have to learn about the rules of why we can't do things, or why you know what I mean? And I think that was one of the things, actually, to go back to that first question, or the last question you asked me, is that a lot of the times is when I went to school or something and I'd see something that happens that I was raised not to do, I would question it. So I would say, wait, why can't we do this? Right?
Yeah.
Why is this like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And with the knowledge that's how you learn to answer things, right?
Yeah.
So finding that middle ground is understanding where the limits lie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
I get it,
if like to go back to that networking thing, is that someone might say, oh no, you can't go to a networking event because there's women, right?
Yeah.
Someone on that's like one extreme, but then the other extreme would be like, no, you have to get a job, go talk to the women.
Yeah.
And then you get into the touching and all that stuff, for shaking hands, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you have that moderate thing where it's like, okay, like I need to support my family, so I need to make money. I can go to a networking event, which may facilitate me getting a job, right? And someone might reach out their hand, but I know that as a Muslim, I shouldn't touch them, right? So you can, the way I think about it is if you have that moderate aspect of life, not necessarily like, I think middle is not a fair description of the word.
Yeah.
I would say moderate is better, because you have to look at both ends.
That's true.
And then understand that, okay, like, you know, like I said, you might need to provide for your family. So you can go to this event, and then I'm not promoting any events, by the way. So I'm just saying, like, hypothetically speaking, you could go to an event, but if someone reaches out their hand and it's a female, it's like, okay, well, sorry, I respectfully, I can't shake your hand, as I follow my religion and I do not want to, like, I have that value. You know what I mean? Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
In Dubai, the Islam over there, like, people follow Islam in a very similar way. Everyone follows in a similar way, because the mosques are very similar. But when I came here, it's like, it's not sex. Even within Sunnis, it's like the way people follow Islam in one masjid is very different from another masjid.
Right.
Do you think that also influences people, and that also that in turn ends up making us Muslims more introverted, because we don't know what we can do and what we can't do, because it's like we don't get a proper answer from anywhere.
Yeah,
like,
I would say
everyone
so.
tells you something else, and you're not sure what to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the safest thing to do is, this isn't Islamic advice, I'm not a scholar or anything, but I think the safest thing to do is go to your local masjid. Yeah. And this is usually the opinion you should follow. Yeah. Because, right, you're not going to go into a masjid and start screaming about some rulings that you found, right? Or make a fatwa out of nowhere.
Unless you're giving a khutbah.
Yeah, but like, that's the thing, right? I think the people who are leading these mosques or these masjids, these people are in the positions of leadership for a reason.
That's true, yeah.
Right? So I would say, like, go to your local mosque and ask your imam or ask your sheikh about certain questions that you have, because they would be able to give you a better answer than your friend, right? Like,
that's true.
So I think that's the way to circumvent that. Yeah. Yes, there can be differences, and there are different. There are four schools of thought. Yeah. And they're all correct. Yeah. You can't point at one and say one's wrong.
That's true, yeah.
Right? So that's why I'm of the understanding that you should go to your local mosque and take that opinion, because you are part of that community now. Right? So even if you move and you're going to find your local mosque, now you're part of that community. You can't intervene if they're following a different school of thought and say, oh no, everything is wrong. Brother, why are you doing this? It's not fair for you to do that, because, again, all schools of thought are correct. Yeah. Right? Yeah, so that's true. It goes back to being moderate. Yeah. Right?
No, but so when it comes to most, like, immigrants, when they first come to Canada, it's like they don't have a proper area that they're living in, so they're moving around a lot more. So do you suggest them, like, every time they switch locations, like, they might have to learn everything again? Like, because the four school of thoughts, I mean, most of them are very similar, but there's some stuff which is
very, very nuanced, like, topics and stuff.
So what advice would you have for people who are a bit, like, on the go? Like, they don't live in the same place for too long. They'll live in another place, and another place, and then another local masjid.
I mean, I don't think you have an issue. Because, again, I think if you go back to the people in the positions of leadership, again, they're there for a reason. So if they're not leading properly, then, you know, may Allah forgive them and may Allah forgive us. I'm not saying I'm pious or anything, but may Allah guide us to being pious and to being good Muslims. But it goes back to that is, I think because all schools of thought are correct, we should be open to understanding what the rulings are from each one. Yeah. I'm not saying to complicate your life by, like, saying, oh, I can't touch this, or I can't do that, or I can't, right? There's certain limits. So that's why, like, I know you're asking about if you switch meshes often. It's about speaking to the person in leadership right? And understanding where they're coming from and why are they following this, right? Because you need to have that reason why. It goes back to how I answered earlier about having questions about your religion or who you are growing up in a Western society, or who your identity is, or what your identity is. It's about asking questions. So you don't want to overcomplicate yourself by asking, what is this? What is that? Where is this? Why is that? Right? But if you go to the person in leadership and you ask them like, okay, I'm having this issue. How can you help me? What can I do to solve it? And they have the understanding, they have the knowledge, hopefully, to give you a sound and concrete answer, right? So I understand that it might be difficult when you're moving around a lot, but it would always just go back to that, is that you want to find someone who's in a position of Muslim or Islamic leadership, right? Especially at a mosque, and just trying to understand, right?
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. All right, now moving a bit more. Mashallah, I heard that you were married at a very young age.
I wouldn't say young, but like, I mean, I think any guy would say they want to get married at 18, you know? Like,
yeah, that's true.
But,
but
yeah.
Most people consider that young in like this society, especially. So what is the biggest challenges you learned from doing it, and what motivated you to do that?
I know. So I got married at 23, just for everyone's like, not knowledge. I don't really want you to know that, but it's just a matter of like context. So I got married at 23. In Western culture, or specifically in Arab culture now in the West, it's not common. And alhamdulillah, I was able to do that. And the challenges that came up with it were that, you know, people look down on you sometimes. Especially for marriage prospects, right? Yeah. Is that they'll be like, okay, well, what do you do for work? Where do you live? And what do you like? There's just so many questions for barriers that sometimes you're deterred from it. So there's a lot of guys now in their 30s who aren't married because they say like, why should I even try? Right?
Yeah, that's true.
Or someone might put a financial sticker on something and say, oh, I need to have $1 million in my bank account. But right, like trying to get that, you know what I mean? Like, it's possible, don't get me wrong, it is possible to have $1 million in your bank account. But if you're trying to get married at a young age, that's probably not likely unless you hit the jackpot with Bitcoin or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
So there is challenges to it, but I think it's possible, especially if you do lots of dua and, you know, like focus on yourself. And I think that's the thing, is it came when I least expected it. So if you focus on yourself, work on yourself, because you're essentially marrying someone else, and someone who doesn't think the same way you do. They have different opinions. They have different way of life. So if you work on yourself and make sure that you can care for someone else, that's when you kind of know you're in that ready spot. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I don't think it's a financial thing. I don't think people should look at it financially. It's not fair. Right? Because there's so many people, and Allah blesses you when you get married, right? So I don't think people... It's unfair to look at it in a financial way, but unfortunately our society just thinks of finances.
That's true. Yeah. But like apart from society, even culture-wise, people push something. No, there's no point of getting married now. You should just wait for some time and get married. What advice would you have to brothers who want to do it, but then they're being held back because of their culture?
I would say go back to religion. Right. There's nothing in the religion that stops you from getting married, unless obviously if you can't take care of the girl, you shouldn't marry her. Right. But my personal belief is that our culture has you can't put culture before religion. You always have to put religion before culture. The only way me and you are sitting here today, or the only thing that's allowing us to sit here today, is that we're Muslim. If I was to say, no, you're not from my culture, I'm not going to talk to you, we wouldn't be sitting here today.
That's true.
But because we put religion first, we are brothers. So we can sit here and speak and have a good discussion versus not having that. You know what I mean? So I think that's the thing, is there comes a limit. Especially, I know, like, especially in our cultures, arranged marriages happen a lot. So it's kind of like that, where it's like, no, I don't want an arranged marriage. I want to find someone myself. I want to speak to the wali. I want to do someone, like, you want to do things correctly or properly or however you want to do it. So like the culture has a limit, right? So we have to look at religion first and then culture. So if your culture says, oh no, you can't get married until you mortgage a house and you mortgage a car and you have a condo unit that's also mortgaged and it's everything, right? If your culture is saying that, if we look at the religion, clearly that's not the right thing to do, right? And why do you want to get your marriage started off on the wrong foot, where you're in debt, in so much debt, right? So I would imagine that we should look at things in a different light and always look at religion first.
Okay, so now... coming a bit back, you mentioned finding someone who has the same values as you. How do you do that in today's world? Do you think, I mean, most people think it's like, my other friends who've come from Dubai, they think it's impossible to do that here. Like, what advice would you have to people who view it as that?
I mean, I would say that you'd have to be patient.
Yeah.
Patience is one of those characteristics that come with looking for marriage. If you're too hasty, you'll find yourself in a very unfavorable situation.
That's true, yeah.
So I would just say look at it with patience, because someone might show you something in the front or like face value, and then when you marry them and everything is going, you think is going well, and then all of a sudden they switch, and it's like this, you basically, you're in a nightmare.
Yeah.
Right? So I think you need to look at it in a way of patience, or look at it in the mind of patience, or sorry, look at it in a view of patience.
Yeah.
And be patient with the process, because it's not gonna, like, inshallah, it's easy for everybody who's watching and yourself.
Yeah.
But it's something that comes with time.
Okay,
right?
but what do you think the process looks like in today's world? Because it's very different. There's so many more ways to, I guess, go on the bout of searching for someone.
Yeah.
Like, what advice would you have for someone who was trying to find someone in today's economy, in today's world economy?
The benefit, I'll tell you right now, is that we have the internet.
Yeah.
You have to obviously be very, not skeptical, but you have to have some vigilance with finding someone online.
Yeah.
But it's definitely an option, because before it was look at your local city, and then perhaps maybe look at some of the outskirt villages. But now it's, I can contact someone in the UK.
Yeah.
Right. And what's stopping me from moving to the UK and finding a job there and getting married there or something?
Yeah.
Right. So I think people should stop putting limitations on themselves like that, where it's like, oh, I need to take somebody from my culture, or I need to take somebody from my town because my job is here. It's like, your job could be anywhere. Your job is a grace from Allah to begin with.
Yeah.
So I don't believe it's fair for you to like lock yourself in and say, oh no, I have to be married in my local city. It's like, no, the internet has opened up so many avenues that you can look. And I think people should take care of that, because when someone comes to me and say, oh, I'm trying to get married, it's like, okay, what have you done? Did you visit all the masjids in your city and ask the imam or the sheikh, do you know anyone who's looking? Did you do that? Right? Did you sign up to all the halal versions of online matrimony sites? Halal. Key point, halal here.
Yeah, we got to mention halal, yeah.
So like, you have to exercise your options, especially when you're trying to do something like marriage.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where the patient comes in, is that you need to be patient with it, because you might not get a match. Yeah. But you might not get a match in the first 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. But I think through time, through patience, inshallah, you'll get a match, and it'll be the right one for you, and so on. Right.
Yeah. Okay. How do you know it's the right one when you do have a match?
That's a difficult question to answer, to be honest. It's very personal.
Yeah.
It's going to be, does the person align with your values? Does the person align with where you see yourself in the future?
Yeah.
Right. Like, I know it's like a meme at this point, where someone asks you, where do you want to be in 5 years?
Yeah.
But I really believe that's a really serious question to ask someone when you're trying to get married. Hypothetically speaking, you're meeting somebody and you say, oh, where do you want to be in 5 years?
Yeah. And
perhaps you want to have kids within 3 or 4. And then they say, oh, in the next 5 years, I want to work on my career or something. I'm not saying women can't work, guys, please. Okay, like,
be careful, guys.
Yeah,
no, I'm kidding.
I'm just to be clear here, is I'm just speaking on very, very vague. So you might get someone who will say, oh no, I want to do something with my life, or travel or whatever. I don't want to focus on having kids, but that's something that you hold dear to yourself, right?
Yeah.
So that could be a turnoff for you, right? And you don't want, like, for me personally, is I'm not saying you need to be very open-minded when you're trying to get married, right? Yeah. So you can't look at yourself and say, okay, well, these are all my what's it called, my non-negotiables. Yeah, like, you can't have all those non-negotiables. Yeah. Right? You need to be able to change 1 or 2 of them, be flexible, right? Yeah. Obviously, kids is something more serious, but like, if someone's going to say, oh, I'd rather travel than buy a house or invest in a house, obviously without a mortgage, inshallah, right? Inshallah, yeah. So but you might find someone who's like that, or it's like someone who say, oh no, I want to rent for the rest of my life or something, right? Yeah. You have lots of the differences of opinion, difference of values, and you just have to see where that lands with who you are, right? Yeah. And that's the thing, is that if you don't see them with their goals aligning with yours, I don't think it's ideal to be in that relationship, because when you get in right away, you're going to be conflicting in what you want to be doing, right? So again, with kids, is that if you have someone who says, I don't want kids, but you want to have at least 2 or 3, maybe 4, clearly your goals don't align.
Yeah.
Right? So you trying to get to know somebody and like putting all that effort, energy, trying to learn who they are, and you know what I mean? All at the end of it for them to say, oh yeah, I actually don't want kids. And that declines what, that's a complete negation to what you want. It doesn't work for the both of you.
All right, now getting off the topic of marriage, you gave amazing advice there, by the way.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope people can take that and really take it with a grain of salt, because everyone's experience is different. So, you know, learn from, I'm not saying I'm a scholar or anything, but learn from what I've said. Take what I've said if you want and adapt it to yourself. Again, work on yourself first before you try to approach others.
You might have changed someone's life with everything you just said. Okay, but now I want to move on to the stuff you do. You have a podcast.
Yes.
And Alhamdulillah, he allowed me to use his equipment. It's my first podcast. He's my new podcast mentor. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no worries.
And
I'm no professional, by the way.
This is professional.
No, nowhere close.
Yeah. So one thing I loved about your reels, when I was watching the reels, the clips that you make, you use no music in it.
Yes.
First of all, and okay, when you don't use music, it sounds dry. You know, almost go crazy. I'm like, oh my God, I'm looking at this without music.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to watch it. But yours, you have sound effects and other things in the background, which it's more easier to watch. And it's honestly very entertaining.
Correct.
So what influenced you to go that route, and how do you do it?
One of the, you know, I really like this question, and hopefully I'll make a video. I have a personal channel as well. And I want to make a video on this, inshallah, soon.
It's going to be in the description, his personal channel, his podcast, and his socials if you want to contact him in any way.
I appreciate it.
Sorry, cut you off.
Continue. Yeah, no worries. So essentially, when it comes to editing, editing in videos and pictures is something I really enjoyed when I was young. So I always wanted to get a camera. I always wanted to, you know, try to make it a professional living and stuff. But as I grew up and started learning more about the religion and what, like, things that I can and can't do, I slowly realized that perhaps that's going to be very difficult. And I started putting up barriers and making it challenging for myself.
Yeah.
Right. Where I said, oh no, but if I don't use music, and I'm not going to be successful and whatever. And I made it very difficult for myself. But I slowly learned that there are avenues that you can change, right? Like a key thing I know is like weddings. Like if you do weddings, videography for weddings or photography. And that's something that I did want to do when I was young. I was like, oh, like, you know, you can do weddings on the weekend, make a few, like, $100 on the side, maybe 1,000, whatever it is. But I slowly realized that it didn't align with my values, because I don't want to be in an area where perhaps there's lots of alcohol consumption.
That's true.
It's not somewhere I want to be. And then I'm taking pictures of it, and then I'm editing it, and then I'm sending it to the person, right? Or likewise, I don't want to be around immodest dress. Like, people don't dress modestly sometimes in weddings. Right. And then again, I'm taking pictures or videos of these people. I'm looking at it. I'm editing it. This isn't something that I wanted to do. Right. And then aside, again, you have to look for the right music and all that stuff. It didn't align with who I was as a Muslim. Right. Because and some people might object and say, oh, well, and there's nothing wrong with it. You're trying to make money, blah, blah, blah. OK, but you need to understand that if your sister was the person being photographed, or your mom, right. If you're watching this, you have a mom. Right. At least you have a mom. So how would you feel if your mom was just immodestly in a tight dress or whatever, and then someone's filming her and then taking that home and editing it and then posting it online or something? I don't think you would like that, right? Likewise, if you had a sister and you allow that, you need to work on yourself, to be honest, right? Like, go get yourself checked out, without trying to be disrespectful here, but you wouldn't allow that for your mom, so you shouldn't allow that for yourself. And that's where I found where I had to look at different avenues on how to do things. And I found that the music thing was a very big thing, because even when you look at YouTube Shorts, there's music, or TikTok or anything, or Instagram Reels, there's always a music in a lot of the content. And the thing that scares me the most, to be honest, music is very scary. And that's why I don't want to use it.
I agree with that.
Because it consumes people. It consumes you to the point that you don't know what's happening anymore. Right? And you're not thinking logically, because the music is influencing your opinion about something.
That's true.
Because if you have the same clip, you can put very dark music and then it'll make it sad. But then you can put upbeat music and it'll make it happy. Then you can put loving music and you can make it caring. So with the sounds that you choose to use will manipulate the opinions of the viewers. And this is where I found is the biggest, like that's the scariest thing for me. Because if you're watching this content right now, or if you're watching my own content, then if I was to put music, I'm influencing your opinion about something, or I'm trying to keep your attention. And I don't think that's fair, because it's not fair for me to capture your attention and keep it because I'm using sounds. I need you, if you're watching this content, or my own or Awab's, you need to be watching it out of your own will, right? You're watching it because you want to grow. You're watching it because you want to be better. You're watching it because you want to learn something. I'm not saying that I'm some knowledgeable guy here, but I'm just saying is that the music people use is very scary. Like, go look at editing tactics, or like how to make a good YouTube video. You'll see a lot of them just say you have to have this music, you have to have a ramp, you have to have a drop, you have to change the sound. And it's really, really scary, because you find yourself sometimes down the rabbit hole where you find yourself watching this random YouTube video about, I don't know, like there's a few channels, I won't name them, but they have like content that's geared to like the randomest things, right? Where it's like a 15-20 minute video on like some random topic, like a chair. And then it's like, oh, the history of chairs. It's like, why do I care? Right? Like, I'm sitting on a chair. Like, why do I care about where it came from? If I need to know, I could just look it up online. You know what I mean? I don't need to watch a video that's going to affect my mind and take up a lot of mental space. Yeah. So I find, just to answer the question, is that I found that there are different things you could do about using music. Perhaps changing the camera angles, or using sound effects, right? Mouse clicks or shutters or shuffling or something, right? Or even just making, again, the content somewhat engaging, and hopefully it's engaging. So people,
like, you found it very hard to find this way of doing it.
There's
a lot of other brothers right now who they want to make content, and if they don't use music, it's not entertaining enough. And when they try to use sound effects, it doesn't sound as great as well, but because they're not able to use it properly, because there's no proper avenue for them to learn how to do it. So what advice would you have for them?
I would say, so there is a benefit to seeing how those people make content, right? So the one thing I would recommend is take those videos with a grain of salt. Yes, perhaps using music, whatever, but I honestly don't use it, because you can use visual cues, right? Maybe bring a picture on screen, right? Have subtitles, do like transitions, animations or something with sound effects, right? And that can really elevate your content. So I would say trial and error, right? Obviously my first videos aren't the best, especially when I started making them a long time ago. But it's through learning, through editing, through making mistakes, that I was able to learn, okay, well, if I have a cut, I can put a snap or a clap, or a switch or something, right? Or a shuffle, right? And then you kind of align. Actually, the one thing I would say is look into, I think it's called Foley, like Foley artists. It's those people that make the sound effects for movies. So you'll see they'll use like lettuce or something, and they'll squish it to make the sound of something, someone crunching something, right? Or they'll use sand and they'll like touch it or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's a really cool industry, and there's no music in it, right? Or they might use like a drums in here and there, but they use celery sticks for breaking it. They use shoes. They use like everyday objects. And they make sound effects for it to make sounds in the movie. Like, really check it out. I think it's spelled Foley. And I think that's where I got a lot of the inspiration from, learning how to use sound effects. Because again, these people are using random objects to make Hollywood movies. You know what I mean? So.
I mean, since you're a content creator, that is something I'd love to see you make a video on, because I know that's something a lot of people are struggling with.
That's actually not a bad idea.
Okay, now moving on. This is going to be the last question. It's going to be a little deep, but how would you like to be remembered once you're gone?
Oh man, that's it's kind of difficult to answer, to be honest, because when we think of the Islamic perspective, like when we think of like sadaqah jariyah, right? So what can we do today that will help us in the hereafter or in the afterlife? I think that's a very big thing, right? I know they say, the best day to plant a tree was 5 years ago or 10 years ago or yesterday. The next best time is now. So you should plant a tree now, right? So I would say, in terms of remembrance, it's very difficult, because I don't want to be remembered for someone. Like, I think a good way to put it would be, look at the characteristics of someone you don't want to be.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be remembered as someone who's lazy. I don't want to be remembered as someone who doesn't hold their word. I don't want to be someone who doesn't hold their value.
Yeah.
Right. So if I would like, that's what I'm saying is like, look at those look at those characteristics and do the opposite. So if I don't want to be someone who's lazy, I will try to do my work on time. I will wake up early. I will do this. I will, you know what I mean? I will go to bed on time. I will be punctual. I will do all those things that will make me not lazy. So if I do, or when I do pass away, it's not if, everyone's going to pass away, right?
Yeah.
كل نفس ذائقة الموت. So if when I do pass away, then I could say, or people might say, oh, I remember him. He wasn't lazy. Or I remember what he did. He helped out. Or I remember this. He did that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to be remembered in a way that is like negative. You know what I mean?
I totally
Obviously, everyone can have their own opinion of myself or you or anybody, and that's up to you. But for me personally, it's just what can we do? What sadaqah jariyah can we make?
Yeah.
Or what charity can we give? How can we involve ourselves with the community for the better, for the greater good, and move forward in like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that answers the question, but I want I want to be remembered as someone who has good character qualities, and the best person actually we can look at is reading the stories of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Especially like there's so many books on his character and his conduct, right? On the most beautiful and amazing man he was, right? Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I think we just need to try to emulate that as much as we can, and just read the seerah or listen to the seerah. There's lots of series online, right, that we can listen to. I know AMAU, Al-Madrasat Al-Umariyah, they have a really good series, and their production quality is really good. But it's just a matter of learning the qualities of the best person ever created, right? And I think that's how I want to be remembered. Is obviously we can't get to that level, but we can try, and trying is the key here.
That's true. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for having me.
Everything you shared with us. Some words you said might change people's lives. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah.
Once it goes online. Yeah. And this is my first podcast. Thank you so much to Khalid for allowing me to use his equipment, and his everything is basically his. It's just me talking right now. So stay tuned. Inshallah, I hope this keeps going on, and one of many more.
Yeah, inshallah.
Khalid, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you guys for listening and watching to OAP's podcast. It's a pleasure for him to have me as his first guest, and inshallah it'll be very successful and very fruitful for you, inshallah.
Inshallah. All right. Keep in mind the description is going to have everything related to Khalid, so if you want to contact him or if you want to see his content. So take care everyone.